Echo 5, do you copy? Echo 5.
Echo 2, good morning. Nice of you to drop by.
Feeling alright, sir? Thought we lost you.
Right now, I feel like I can take on this whole podcast myself.
I know what you mean. Ready to send that transmission to Echo Base?
Yes, sir. R10, patch through.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. This week we are going to be covering Andor Episode 3, and this is where things start to get real exciting, because we're getting a lot of the story build up until this point, and now Cassian kind of has to make a choice in this episode. And he has to make a choice, but he kind of gets stuck in the one that he wasn't really wanting to do. So, but it makes it for a fun adventure. So one thing that I really like about the show so far is like all the flashbacks, like everything's building up towards something. And so this one, Cassian is actually going through the downed ship. And I found it really interesting, just the whole thing, because it kind of builds up to how he meets Marva. But he's kind of walking around and gets a little frustrated and starts breaking things. What do you think of that?
To be fair, I've got my notes in front of me on this episode that I was laying in bed this morning, scribbling away, watching the episode, and the first thing I have on there is flashback scenes. And first point, I just love how seamless they are. It flows in the story, which is brilliant. But seeing what got me was the emotion of Cassian when he saw his reflection, which almost felt like for the first time, before he then had that outburst and started smashing everything. Because he was, the opening shot is him going in the crash ship. He can see that the crew of the ship's been killed. I mean, to us it's like poison gas, because the skin's yellowed and stuff. And Cassian's there, and he's prodding the bodies to make sure that they are dead. As he's doing that, a door opens behind him, or in front of him, technically. But then he sort of goes around the room, and we see him touching his own face because he's seen his reflection, and that really got to me, because it was like, okay, this is real. This kid that has he's got no idea what he looks like. It was so surreal. And again, we said it before we had the mini break, that this is really the first Star Wars series that is comparable with real life. And there are places out there in the world that don't have the ability to have a mirror or see their reflection. So again, it added that extra bit of realism as well.
It's kind of crazy if something that simple, that you look at this tribe of kids and you're just kind of, oh, okay, they're just kind of very like nice little, kind of remind me of like Ewoks, just living in a forest, kind of like just living off of the land.
Yeah.
And so it is actually very interesting to see a character that's not used to any of this come into something like this, and it's like, okay, something as simple as a reflection is very curious to him, because he's like touching everything, and then it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think for an opening, because this is part 3 of really the opening story arc. It's part, the episodes got released, 1, 2, and 3 got released at the same time, and this is the culmination of the opening, and to see sort of how Cassian grew up. It's so strange that this character that was in a Star Wars side story movie has become such a big character in general. Like who would have thought that we'd be wanting to know who this person is? But look, within the first few minutes of this episode, seeing him as a kid in a flashback scene, it's like, I want to know more. I need to know what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool things, because like how you mentioned, like the flashbacks like really flow with the episode very seamlessly. I think it was the word that you used. And because like it's even building up to this point of, you got all this suspense, all this urgency that's happening. Andor meets up with, I think, what was his name, Rael?
Yeah.
And you got the corpse team. They're going after his residence, because it's like, oh yeah, Andor is the one that killed these two guards, and so they're trying to push through. They go over to Marva's place, or Minerva, Marva, and so they're heading there because they know that's where Andor lives. And then you jump back to the flashbacks, and then you got Marva walking through the ship, and everything's kind of like happening at the same time in the flashback and in real life. And it's like, oh yeah, we got a Republic ship is on the way. We gotta hurry. And then as soon as you said that, it flips back over to Cyril, and it's creating an urgency on both sides. So it's telling two stories, and you're like put in suspense on both past and present.
And
I don't know if you got that.
No, I did, and I was just going to say that I think this episode, I know that we had the flashbacks in episode 2, which worked well, but this was just, to me, it was up there in terms of cinematography, the way that it flowed, and it going from scene to scene. Again, using the seamless word, it took me on first viewing, and even today making the notes, it took me a second to realize that, well, actually it's just transitioned into what would be present day instead of the past. And again, vice versa, it did take me a couple of seconds to realize, oh wait, we're now in the past again. But that's so cool. I didn't realize that. It's a good case of storytelling.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, because I think it really helped drive the emotion. Because I know we talk about these flashbacks not having subtitles and all that, and it's just kind of focused on the characters' actions and everything that they're doing. And so by them doing this, it really drives the emotion for what's happening with Cassian now.
Yeah.
So definitely great storytelling.
So I mean, one thing, when it went from Cassa as Cassa to Cassian Andor, when they did the time skip at the beginning, I've just got one question. Was that a Venator class that they were cutting up? Well, because it's been bugging me.
I believe so. I don't know. I'll have to Google that one, but I think it is.
It would make sense, and it looked like in the background as well there was sort of the framework for an AT-AT, which would make sense in a way, because it's a sort of junkyard planet. They would need things to move, need machinery to move these bits around. But just seeing sort of like mini Easter eggs like that, really, I love it when that happens.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I do like about the show, because like later on, like we will see a lot more Easter eggs coming forth, and I think they do that well, because we don't really have Jedi, we don't have Sith, we don't have a big Imperial presence yet. So I think it's a way for them to kind of like connect it to the universe. Like, okay, yeah, we're still in the Star Wars universe. This is cool.
Yeah.
Because like even some of the music is, I think we discussed has like some some hints of original music.
Yeah. I mean, there's on that music front. I want to talk about the end scene or scenes when we get to it. Just remind me before I forget to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, so obviously, we're seeing more and more of Ferrix as a whole, as a planet, and
Yeah, because everybody's running around everywhere.
yeah, but it gives it that sort of perspective as to what kind of planet it is. We've seen Tatooine. We know it's sand. We've
Yeah.
seen, we've seen Coruscant in so many things. We know it's buildings, but this is a planet that, again, is new to the Star Wars universe, and it's becoming more and more that it's not a rip-off of other planets. It's its own thing, and
while it does draw like similarities to other Star Wars planets, I think and this is what I really like about the show. I know I keep saying that phrase, but there's just so much to love about the show. Is that we get things that are similar, but what really drives the difference is the lifestyle. Because usually in like the Star Wars movies or other shows, like we have a character go into a city and they're just kind of walking through it, and then they get right to the main person that they need to talk to, and it's kind of like secluded from like the rest of the city. This one is really driven by every character on the set. Doesn't matter how small. Like every character is doing something like impressive. Because from Bix to the people in the background banging on things, it's like you get to see the lifestyle, and it changes everything for me. It's like, okay, go to Mos Eisley. It's really cool to kind of see like the droid. They're like doing stuff in the background, but this one really pulls you into that lifestyle instead of just passing through it.
Yeah. I mean, on the banging things side, when the townspeople were, banging on whatever they could to make as much noise as possible, that gave me chills, because that's it's a community that is sticking together and looking out for their own. And I think, in especially sort of in these times in real world, we need that, and to see that in Star Wars, it's like it's so emotive. And I think that's why, I mean, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Andor, they're so emotive. And I know that we go into more stories, in as the episodes progress, but for an opening sort of pilot episode / episodes, this, it delivers on all fronts. You've got the emotion, you've got the backstory, but it's not sort of thrown at you. You've got characters that are doing things. It's everything that's needed, and you've got the correlation to modern day. I mean, basically, I can just talk and talk and talk about how this episode affected me in a good way.
No, I mean that's what's good about these shows, is like you can really pull, like it really pulls out your emotions. It like really draws you in and makes you think.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the same for me. That's why like I talk to a lot of people. It's like, oh yeah, Andor is probably my favorite Star Wars show that they've done. And everyone's like, oh, what about Mandalorian? What about this? I was like, nah, Andor is something else. Like I enjoyed watching Ahsoka, Kenobi, and Mandalorian, but I don't get into it as much as Andor does. It's like there's just so much to look at in Andor and so much to talk about in Andor. It really draws into the emotion, and because, like I said before, you get so invested in the characters because we're seeing it from so many different characters' perspectives. Like we see it from Marva's, we see it from Andor's, we see it from Bix, we see it from Rail, we see it from Cyril. So you got like 5 characters building a story, and all of them have different motives. Everybody's doing something different. And then you get the background characters.
Yeah, and like we said, the background characters, they're not just aimlessly walking around. They're actually doing things. It's not like they're just looking busy. They are actually doing something, and it might just be hammering away at things, but each character has their purpose. And as the cameras pan across to different to the main characters, and you see these ones in the background, every actor in this has been cast really well, I think. And it's apparent again in this episode where the whole town is just banging on things to make noise, and everyone's getting involved. You can see on their faces there's a reason why they're doing it. Again, and then it adds to that emotion of the scenes.
It really does. And actually, speaking of the actors, like Marva, I love that we got a little bit more story on her this time.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, because we get to see how her and Andor finally connected. It's like, okay, adoptive son, okay. Where does that fit in? What happened with Casa? And then we see this, he's on the ship, and her and her husband Clem walk in because they're I think they salvage equipment.
Yeah.
And so they come across Andor, and I thought that was really interesting because like there's like, oh yeah, we'll take him. I was wondering why they wouldn't take the other ones, but I do know that she mentioned that it's like, oh yeah, they already killed a Republic officer, so when this Republic ship lands, they're gonna retaliate. So it's kind of sad. It's like, okay, we're gonna adopt you, Casa. Come with us. We got a limited time, but the rest of your tribe, they're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
Or taken prisoner, because I don't think the Republic would come in and just kill. Because I think this is before Empire, or is this during the Empire? The flashbacks.
I know that we discussed this in the last episode that we did.
Oh, that's right, we did.
Yeah, we tried to place a time on it, and because of their uniforms, they were
because they're definitely so okay. That's right. It's 10 years before the main series.
Yeah.
So 15 years before the Battle of Yavin. So yeah, I believe the Empire is in charge at this point.
Yeah.
Because I think Battle of Yavin was what, 19 BBY. Yes. So they're about 4 years at this point. Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So it's, I mean, that decision, and again, you can see it on the actors' faces. It's not a decision that they want to do. Take one kid, leave the rest for whatever fate may get onto them. But they're saving one, and that one might be enough. But I also liked the fact that they couldn't understand each other.
I thought that was funny because Clem is trying to talk to Cassian, and she's like, I don't think he understands you.
Yeah, but it's just something simple like that. But again, look at world history. It's the same thing. It's real life. It's what would have happened. There's no universal translators. It's not like Star Trek where everybody can understand everybody straight away. This is.
And I think Marva and Clem kind of connect the audience as well because we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Like the whole time, no subtitles. So and they're talking, we don't understand them. So it's like, okay, we're not the only ones that don't understand these guys. And so it joins the audience with the two characters coming in contact with him. It's like, yep, he can't understand you. It's like, yeah, we can't understand him either.
And that's why when we see Casa sort of struggling against Marva, when she's trying to sedate him, like there's real fear on his face because he doesn't know what's going on.
Doesn't know if they're there to help or kill him because he just saw the guy outside get up and start shooting.
Yeah, so he's on edge anyway because big metal object falls from sky, kills people, and he's exploring it, and he sees people are dead in there, so and has the rage fit, and then this couple appear from sort of nowhere, and now they're trying to do something to him. It's like, what would you do? You can't communicate effectively, so you scream and kick off, especially when you are a kid. And I think it's almost heartbreaking in a way when if you think, this character had his whole life in one place so far, as a kid, to then be forcibly taken without you knowing what's going on. And again, it's that historical real world and comparison. And I think, the writers of Andor, they've done a really good job of bringing real world
situations.
Yes, the word situations, to the forefront of people's minds again, albeit, in a Star Wars setting.
Mm-hmm. But so it is really, the storytelling is just phenomenal, and how they're able to draw those connections to the viewers or the audience. Because you also get to know the characters' feelings. It's like their expressions and everything. So it's one thing that I noticed on Marva and Clem is like everybody's reactions to each other is played a big part in that scene too.
Yeah.
Let's see. But yeah, and then it jumps back to the present. And then we're dealing with Marva again, but she's getting a little restrained by, who was it? I believe Karn. I can't remember if Cyril was there.
I know he was part of. I think he was there. I know.
Oh no, yeah.
That he was around there at that point.
Mm-hmm.
One negative thing that I have to say about their uniforms.
They're ugly.
This is just the nerd in me, is that they were very Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, now that you mention it, I actually didn't think of that. I was actually, when I saw their uniforms, it brought me back to Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
Because I forget, because I remember the main corporation there, they had that type of uniform, but I think they're like orange or something.
Yeah, I think it was just the colors of these uniforms, comparing those to the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially from the new movie and like the main comic book run. It was just too similar, and I can't unsee it now.
That is true. Zerka Corporation, that's what I was thinking.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, their uniform, when I first saw it, the Zerka uniform is what I thought. But I could see where you get I can see the similarities to it being like a Marvel production thing.
And sometimes that's not a bad thing, but it just caught my eye, and now
I do like things to stand out though. I don't like going, okay, this reminds me of this, unless it's from its own universe.
Yeah.
Because I think, other than that, I think they did really good on the costume. Like everybody else's costumes seemed very unique and very different.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like the regimentality of the Imperial costumes. I just wish that they were a different color and that it didn't remind me of Guardians of the Galaxy. But then, in a weird sort of way, they are meant to be, in air quotes, guarding the galaxy. That's what the Empire was perceived to be. This whole unity under one rule. So
That is true.
So in a weird way, it does link in, which is it's a strange way to think about it.
Long live the Empire.
Yeah, but no, I mean you are correct. The costume designer, even again, for background characters, their clothes are the same to the same sort of degree as the hero characters. The costumes that they're not like, oh yeah, this guy's a background actor, we'll just put a sort of ragged t-shirt on him.
Yeah.
Every character has their own unique outfit, and again, it adds more depth to the story.
Yeah. Because the definitely the costumes are really cool. Like, I mean, I like the distinction that you put on it with being very similar to like the good guys, because like if you think about it, when you're on Cyril's perspective, you don't see him as a villain only by his actions or the way that how intense he is on finding Andor. But to him, it's like, okay, 2 people get killed, we're bringing someone to justice. So in his mind, he's a good guy, and by all accounts, he's like a police officer, so he is doing the right thing. It's like, this guy, we need to get this murderer off the street so we can protect other people so they don't get killed by the same guy. So I can see. So that's what I also like about your point on the costume. Is like, yeah, similar to the good guys, because I mean, he technically is one.
Yeah.
It's just we're rooting for our hero, our titled hero.
Yeah.
Because I think I mentioned last time, and it's like It's like we saw Andor and what happened. Granted, it was a little extreme and whatnot, but we know the reasons that he didn't just do it out of cold murder.
Yeah.
He was doing it for survival. Well, maybe the second guy was murder, but the first one, unintentional.
Yeah, I mean, with the second guy, you can kind of chalk that one up to it would be a worse situation if he didn't then, if Andor didn't shoot him, because it would be, there'd be more people after him straight away, whereas at least
It'd be a lot quicker.
He's got a chance to escape and potentially hide.
Yeah, and that's kind of what he's doing now, because he's like, he's trying to get out of here now. Because they know that they're looking for Canary Mel, and so he's trying to get out of there quick.
Yeah.
Because I forget, who does he stop by before he sees Rael? He talks, because he's talking to was it Clem? No, Clem. I think Clem is dead, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Because there's a guy that he speaks to about Marva in like the shipyard.
Yeah, but yeah, I wish I'd made a note of who that was, but because there's that one line where he also says, he's getting the money today, and he'll leave some with Marva, but he's going, he's out of there, and
that's right, because he's trying to get the ship.
Yeah, and all you see, that the camera pans across to the guy's face that he was talking to, and he asks, "Where are you going?" And there's just no answer. It's like, all right, so
Andor, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's
Jedi business.
But Andor's got he's got something in his head. He knows what he's got to do, and he's not going to stop trying to do the right, or what he thinks is the right thing. Which again, I think, you can compare Andor to Cyril, especially in this episode where, both are driven by goals that are very similar but so far apart at the same time. They both want that they want to do the right thing, or what they think is the right thing.
Yeah, and we soon find out that Cassian's plan doesn't go the way that he wants.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a good thing, kind of like another realistic thing. It's like, yeah, we got a plan, but nothing ever goes the way that it's supposed to. And because I know Rael meets with Bix, and then she tells him about the whole bulletin thing, and he's like, yeah, I already know about it. He's like, they haven't mentioned his name yet, so we're good. And so she takes him to the right spot for Andor to meet. And I love their interaction. And one of the cool things about this scene is I went and saw Rogue One when it was re-released. And then before the movie started, this was a scene that they played because they teased a scene from the show. And I got to see this whole thing play out on screen. It was really cool.
Yeah, that would have been so good to see. And I'm kind of jealous that I never went to, I never saw that on a big screen, but that would have been so good.
So it's very interesting because we got Rael. He's going in. Like, we think that he's just coming in to buy this Starship Navigator thing.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because he's got bigger plans. Because Cassian's like, "Yep, I'll sell this." He's like, 40,000. He's like, 40,000. It's like, yeah. That's cheap compared to what I could probably get, but I'm in a hurry, so let's do this. And then Rael starts pushing some buttons, and it's like, I know you don't know me, but I know you. And then I know, was it Cassian? He calls him like Imperial spy or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. He's like, I'm with the Republic or Rebellion or whatever. And it turns into not going there to buy an item, but more of a recruitment. He's like, I've been watching you, Cassian, but you'd be a very good asset. It's like, don't worry about the 40,000. Like, come with me, you'll be taken care of.
Yeah, and because initially we don't really know who Rael is. He's like this guy that he's a collector. We get that much, and he knows what to buy and how much things are roughly worth, but we don't know whose side he's on. So when he's pressing Andor for more information, and he's like, oh yeah, you tell me more story of it, and I'll give you an extra grand. And it's like, this dude means business. Like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, which is interesting because he goes in first and he's like talking to Andor, and he's like, okay, how'd you get this piece? He's like, you either Andor, you're an Imperial spy, or you're just the in between guy for the actual seller, or you're actually telling the truth. And then they start talking, and I love the line they talked about. It's like, oh yeah, the Imperials, like, yeah, I stole it. It's like, I just walked in through the front door. I'm like, they're so cocky that they're not gonna expect someone to come in and steal from them.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like impressed Rael a little bit. He's like, okay. He's like, all right. This guy just walked through a front door, stole an item, and walked out. As if nothing. As if it was nothing.
I've just quickly Googled the line, and it's like, they're so fat and satisfied they can't imagine it that someone like me would ever get inside their house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, just the way that line was delivered was so eerie but accurate as well, because you can imagine this this character just, well, I mean, we've seen it, he does literally walk in, and that's because the Empire are so busy trying to do everything else that, one guy isn't going to make a difference.
Yeah. He's like, all you gotta do is just steal the uniform and put it on, and they're not gonna question it. And it's just funny with how Andor just mocks the Empire.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, they're complacent and arrogant, so easy. And like their whole interaction was very, very cool because I liked how they both had different intentions for talking. One's trying to recruit, the other one's just trying to get money and get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Because I know Andor, he's like, okay, let me count the money real quick, and then Rael starts talking to him about the cost of resisting the Empire. And then he talks about, he's like, oh yeah. He's like, wasn't your adoptive father Clem? He was hanged by the Empire, right? Yeah. And that kind of pulls a nerve with Andor because Andor pulls out his gun at that moment. It's like, all right, who are you? Why do you know so much about me?
Yeah, it's that scene there was, again, it was just really good storytelling of, all right, can we trust this guy or not? We don't know what's going to happen next, and it leaves you with suspense of wanting to know more.
Yeah, and because then again, more urgency and suspense is pulling because Andor's like pressing for information now, and the guy's like, all right, well, just let you know, you got people that are coming after you right now, so we don't got much time. So join me, and we can talk about this on the way. And then Andor's like, oh, why should I choose you, or why should I go with you? And then brings it to the whole thing. It's like, well, you can fight back against that Empire. It's like you can take revenge, avenge your Clem or your stepfather or whatever. And it's also interesting because they actually don't do the whole scene because I do know they go over to Bix and Bix finds out what was it, Tom? I think that was his name. Tim. He's like, yeah, I'm the one that gave him out. I told him where he's from.
Yeah, and I mean that whole character story arc, we said last time that Tim's a little bit jealous of Andor, and hence the ratting him out. But then he kind of tries to atone for that in this episode and gets shot.
Yeah, poor Tim.
Yeah, poor Tim. But then it was by I guess you'd call him like a rookie, because after he gets shot and falls to the ground, the guy that's in charge of that area, he's just like, what the hell did you do? Go back to the ship. You're done for the day. You're flying the ship now. And I found that, again, it was like, so this guy, he was just there to talk. He got shot, and it's kind of, again, paralleling real life events. Mostly in America, because that was quite widely covered, where cops have shot people by mistake, or I don't want to delve too much into real life events and politics, but it had that parallel of this guy got shot by sheer mistake, as it would be, but then you see the consequences of it.
And it's kind of interesting because they're hunting Andor for the same reason, for killing, and then here they do it. And that soldier's probably just gonna get like a slap on the wrist, and it's like, okay, you're gonna go on trash duty or something for a little while. Whereas Andor, it's like, nope, you're going to jail. We're arresting you.
Yeah, you
double standard here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of makes you hate this group a little bit more. It's like, okay, now they're starting to feel a little very empirical. Like they're starting to have that Empire feel.
Yeah.
And so now we can start correlating them and associating them with the Empire. Oh. But it's just crazy because like it's really building. It's like even that like Bix is. I think we don't see Bix the rest of the series, or maybe until the last episode. But they're spending so much time on these characters that barely have like any weight on the rest of the series. But it's showing their importance in just these 3 episodes and how it affects everything. Because they don't. Because it doesn't turn into the whole Mary Sue thing. Like, and with Rey, like everything became super easy. There's different ways to think on her with it, but this one is actually showing it. It's like, yep, Andor couldn't have done this by himself. Everything's working together, and if one thing messes up, or if one thing didn't play out a certain way, things would be different. It's like things just aren't going easy for him. He's really having to fight and get through this.
That's an interesting point to make on it, actually. Yeah. I mean,
because even with meeting Rael, like he wasn't planning on going with him.
Yeah, it was kind of more the situation led to it. Which again, it's like we mentioned it in the last episode that we did. It's that fight or flight thing, and you can see before they do escape, Andor Seren's like, I want to fight, I want to get the thing that you came here for, and Rael's like, no, leave it, just we've got to go, and Andor reluctantly goes, but ultimately he knows that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. What did you think of this whole like fight scene in the warehouse? I thought that was like really cool. Because like this is like the first action that we've like seen in the show, and it does not disappoint.
Yeah, I think it was done really well because there was no lightsabers, there was no jetpacks, there was nothing really sort of too technological. It was just
Blasters.
it was people shooting at each other
and using their environment.
Yeah, and it goes back to sort of the early Star Wars video games, where like you had to use the environment to hide behind. And I'm desperately trying to think. I had one. It was on PlayStation, which really dates me.
The first PlayStation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I'm trying to think what Star Wars games was for it.
I think it was like Rebel Alliance 2 or something. It had such a simple title. But part of the game, you're this character, and you're trying to steal a ship, but you have to use the environment to hide behind. I mean, it was PlayStation. It was very simple. But there were crates that you had to hide behind, and stuff like that. And I'm desperately trying to Google it quickly to see if it is the one that I'm on about. It is. It's Rebel Assault 2.
Rebel Assault. Okay.
Rebel
yeah.
Assault, yeah. But yeah, so seeing the Andor and Rael crouching and hiding and trying to figure their way out of where they are. It wasn't over the top. There was no real sort of not. I was going to say there's no real sense of danger because we know what happens to Andor, but at the same time, there was that sense of danger that there's these metal things hanging right above them that were crashing down and being shot at, and it was just a really good scene. And I'm glad as well that it didn't go on too long. It was quite a short scene in the grand scheme of things, but it was done so well and timed perfectly.
Yeah, and I liked that it kind of gave Rael like kind of. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, always have a backup plan. Like, don't like if you come in a room, make sure that you have another exit just in case yours doesn't work out. And so he already had charges set. He's like, yep, we're just gonna blow this up. We're gonna go right out this way. And then it becomes like a whole citywide chasing, which is I thought was really fun.
Yeah. And I mean, when they're going to Rael's ship on the speeder bike, you can see the look of determination on Cassian's face. That like it wasn't his plan, but it kind of was his plan to leave anyway. But now he's more determined to do what he's got to do to survive. And it's kind of that heartbreaking moment where you kind of realize that he is leaving everything and everyone behind, but it's for what he believes in.
Yeah, and he intends to come back because I remember he's like, I'll be back. I'll find a way to get back, but I'll be back.
Yeah.
Like he's planning to leave, but he's also planning to go back because he's got Marva there, and which I also find really funny. I like her scenes a lot in this episode because she's like sitting there. You got the one trooper. He's just kind of like looking out, and she can tell that he's getting like unnerved by all the noises that are going, and she's like, and then he tells her to shut up. She's like, all right, well, when it stops, you're gonna want to fret. And then he's like, oh, what will happen? It's like, yeah, you'll see.
Yeah. Just it'll happen. Just trust me.
Yeah, just trust me. You're right to be unnerved.
But the so to kind of, because we're roughly at that point now, the final scenes of this episode where it seamlessly jumps from Marva on her ship with Andor, just coming around and realizing he's on a ship and looking out, and then the camera sort of pans around and you see adult Cassian looking
Yeah,
at the ship and the music playing, and that was the music that they did for that scene. It worked because it wasn't like the normal Star Wars type music where it was a bit operatic. It was just simple, but you realize that there's the parallels now between Casa leaving his home world to Andor leaving to see what happens next. And it was that bit of the unknown of what's going on, what's going to happen.
yeah, because at this point he's had a whole plan. He's like, yep, I got my ship. I'm gonna fly out this way, and I'm gonna do this. And it's like, well, now I'm with this guy, and he's got a different plan. So I don't know what's going on. It's like maybe I'll have him drop me off somewhere, but he doesn't have the Starlink anymore. Because I remember he tried to go back for it, and Rael's like, no. He's like, leave it.
And then they blew it up.
Then they blew it up. Speaking of which, what do you think of the chasing? Because I like how Andor sneaks up on one of the guys, and he's like, all right, how many troops are there? And so he kind of gets like an idea of how many troops are after him, and then he steals the guy's comm link, breaks it, and then I think I might have missed it because we have the ship flying off because they shoot it down, thinking that Andor's on it, right?
Yeah. Well, because that's the ship that had the guy that killed Tim was told to fly that ship, and the workers had sort of tied or welded or whatever, scrap metal and stuff. So that crashed and that was gone because a bit of it was attached to a big chunk of metal that got stuck on the remnants of whatever they were dismantling, and it kind of just ripped the ship apart. One thing on that though, just sort of going a bit sideways on it, is the shell shock on Cyril's face.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
he was frozen. He had no idea what to do. He was put in this position where he was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be like, I'm in charge of you guys kind of thing. But you know, now
And
he's like,
everything's going wrong.
yeah. And when the camera's just, stuck on his face, and he's being screamed at to move, to get out of there because they're all going, and he's just frozen because he has no idea what to do. And I think, again, as much as we hate that character for for one reason or another, the way that he's played is so well done.
Oh, absolutely. And you kind of feel bad for him because you're like, he is a guy that is just trying to catch a murderer.
Yeah.
In his mind, that's what he's doing. And he's trying to keep people safe, but Andy's trying to be a leader and he's messing up so bad.
Yeah.
But because what was it? The Karn is like pulling him. He's like, you need to go. We need to leave now. We got to go. And Cyril just, like you said, shell shocked. He's just standing there, doesn't know what to do. And it had to take another person to grab him and pull him out of whatever he was in for his own safety.
Yeah. And I mean, we
And it's
kind
Sergeant
of,
Moss, not Karn. Sergeant Moss.
yes, yeah. And we kind of see the repercussions of that in the next episode as well. And
Mm-hmm.
But the whole escape, Cassian escaping, it's hard to describe it. Just it's hard to describe just one part of it, because the whole thing, if there was one bit missing, the whole scene wouldn't work. From from the shell shock on Cyril's face to the town people, everything. It just all had to work for the scene to work, and it did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's like I said, like everything that they do to build up to tell the story, they are very on point. And we know this isn't gonna be the last time we see Cyril.
Yeah.
He may be shell shocked, but he's not one to give up.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Which we're excited for because we'll get to know more about his story and kind of like some more development on his end, which is gonna be really cool.
Yeah.
Because like all the main characters that they've put on the show so far have really pulled me in. Like I'm interested in every character story, whether I hate them or not.
Yeah. No, I have to agree. And I think even down to Tim, being shot for basically being in the wrong place, despite the fact he handed, he
He
basically
caused the
gave.
whole thing.
Yeah. You felt sorry for him because he kind of snapped out of it and was trying to atone for what he had done.
It
But
comes back to that whole realism. It's like
yeah.
we know what those emotions are like. Like we get jealous. We make stupid mistakes based off of emotion, and so he's just being human. And then it's like, oh crap, I made a mistake. Let me see what I can do to help, so I can fix it. And like sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, it's
But
a
I feel
shame.
bad for Bix.
Yeah. I mean, Bix, she was heartbroken over that. And
Mm-hmm.
I rewatched the episode again today, like I said, and I'm still not sure whether she was more heartbroken over the fact that Tim died, or the fact that he had handed Cassian in and then he died. Because
Oh
she
yeah.
was it. I've not been put into that position where I've not known someone to hand me in or hand someone that I love in, and then someone gets shot because of it. But to try and gauge that sense of what is this character feeling, because she again, she kind of she's emotional, but she shuts off a bit as well. I don't know if you picked up on that, but there's a lot of her, upset, but we don't fully know the why.
Yeah. I actually didn't make a note on that. That one kind of just didn't. It's like I saw that she was upset, but I didn't put too much thought onto it.
I mean, it's an interesting one that I think carries on into when we see her next in future episodes. She's a character that has the past with Andor, had Tim kind of betrayed both of them essentially, and she was trying to find her way to fix it. Tim was trying to find his way. Tim dies, but we don't know. Like I said, we just don't
Tim
know.
dies.
Tim dies. He's fine. He's fine. He's fine.
He's fine. He's dead, but he's fine.
Yeah.
Just a flesh wound. I've had worse.
Yeah. But so I think to sum up this episode, there's a lot of emotion from a lot of characters. Because I mean, even Marva, she sheds a tear, which you wouldn't really expect considering what she's been through, but she does. She sheds that single tear. Emotions are high in this episode as a whole. People are trying to fix mistakes and do the right thing, which it, like I say, Bix, Tim, Andor, Cyril, they're all trying to do what they think is the right thing. And for a conclusion of the opening three-parter, it ended on a high note, and it left me wanting more again.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like it's telling one big story, and I'm glad that they put all three episodes together, because it seems like it kind of reminds me of like Clone Wars. Like, it has its arcs, but
Yeah,
it's like, okay, this is like the first act, and so we just closed the first act. Now we're ready to move into the next act.
yeah, and I think if they had done it any other way, so if they had just done the first two episodes, I don't know if it would be as well received, because obviously people would be wanting that third episode.
Mm-hmm.
But to have the three just made it that little bit more special, that you've just watched this for what I think like the runtime of all three in total was 96 minutes, which is an average
hour and a half.
Yeah. It just worked, because then it left you wanting the next arc, instead of just being like, oh yeah, here's 2 episodes, we're not going to finish it until next week. And unless you're going to watch it, watch the first 2 again, you could forget about what happened. And to do it this way, to do the 3, I think was a very smart move.
Yeah, and that's now that I think about it, like, one of the things I did like about it is, like, it leaves you wanting to know what the next part of the story is, but you're also satisfied for the conclusion of this setup.
Yeah.
It's like you're satisfied. It's like, okay, I'm okay with how this ended, so now let's get on to the next story.
Yeah.
So overall, very good start to the series. Like, I'm still loving this show the more I watch it. So I'm excited to see what more they do.
I enjoyed it.
What's up?
I forgot how much I enjoyed watching the show. Because we've had Obi-Wan, we've had the Book of Boba Fett, we've had Mando, we've had Ahsoka. This is completely different, and I forgot how much I just enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping people that are listening too, like if you've seen Andor and you're just kind of listening, definitely go back and watch it. Like especially with us discussing it and hearing our thoughts, might change the perspective for you on a bit, or you'll see it differently. Because I know when I watched it first, it was like, oh, this is really cool, this is really cool, and then now I'm going back and watching it. I'm catching things I didn't catch the first time.
Yeah.
The show is like an onion; it's got layers.
Yeah, maybe like in a year's time we can do a sort of part B to this run and be like, oh yeah, we saw this now, and just see how much more we can see in it and sort of understand more. Because have they released the dates for season 2 yet, or is that still
Not yet, but it's supposed to be this year. All I know is this year. So it's probably going to be when they released it last time. It's probably going to be in the fall. I'm not even sure if I've heard anything about Bad Batch 3 yet.
Yeah, because that
Like they
was
haven't really announced much.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting when that's announced. Because I'm guessing that they'd probably announce it on May the 4th. Because who wouldn't? But I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. It says season 2 of Andor around fall 2024, or it might have been delayed to spring 2025. So we still got some time before we'll see another Disney or Star Wars adaptation.
We'll have more of my thoughts on that later, because I don't want to wait.
Yeah, same.
I mean, thing is, you've said it, I've said it. Rogue One initially was not my favorite movie. Andor was just this character that was in it. Now we've had the series and we're going more into his backstory. I want to see
now we're
more.
invested in the character.
Yeah, and again, this episode especially, where we're seeing more and more of how he got to where he was and now what's happening to him. I want more of the story.
And it's not happening soon enough.
It's really not. No, I have to wait a whole nother week before we do another recording.
But I mean, I'm okay with them taking time on it as long as they're delaying it for quality.
Yeah.
Like if they're just delaying it just to delay it because they don't know what they're doing, then it's like, okay. But I'd rather them delay it to take time to bring out the quality instead of rushing something and giving us trash. Because I know Andor was being worked on for a while, and Obi-Wan didn't have the same attention. That one they just pushed out for what's the word I want to use? Just to kind of appease the fans.
So it's like fan service.
Yeah. They pushed it out for fan service. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
But you can tell they took their time with Andor.
But I think with Andor, there is more of a story that needs to be told. Whereas with Obi-Wan, we know who the character is. We know what the character does. That was definitely more fan service. Whereas, like we said with Andor, it's who is this character? Like, what led him to be the guy that helped get the plans for the Death Star? What is his story?
Yeah, he's not a Jedi. Doesn't have the Force. He's just some Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
So let's hear more about him. See what sets him different than the regular citizen of the galaxy. But yeah, so pretty good show episode. All right, guys. So we are going to end it. As always, thanks for listening, guys. Check the links below. You can find our Discord. where you can talk with a lot of other fans. Link to our Instagram where you can see a lot of our posts. And if you want to listen to past podcasts. Let me start that over. All right. And if you want to listen to past podcasts, we have a link to all our different podcast stations. And we do have a couple websites that you can check out if you like collectibles. We got Entertainment Earth. We have some products there that I think you guys would like, from Black Series to lightsabers to pretty much anything that you guys like to collect. And also, if you like t-shirts, we have our own shirts. Just click our Teespring, you can see the designs that we did. But yeah, again, guys, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week. May the Force
be with you.
always.